Hello, my name's Paul.
Hi, my name's Rachel.
And we are the English Language Lab. And this is our Business English podcast, BizPod.
We're going to try to teach you everything you need to know about business English.
So, whether you need English for job hunting, presentations, meetings, or any other form of communication, you have come to the right place.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy BizPod. So, Paul, another BizPod.
Yeah, and today we're talking all about feedback.
Yep, different types and sources of feedback, how to ask for feedback, and what to do with that feedback.
Yeah, also how to give feedback as well, which I think is just as important for our listeners.
Absolutely.
So then, I have some ideas on receiving feedback, which I'd like to talk to you about.
Okay, go on then.
Well, the first thing I want to ask you is, how do you feel about receiving feedback?
Well, I think we need to go a step before that. You've got to define what feedback is. For example, it's not a compliment or a criticism. A compliment, if I say to you, Paul, well done, that's not feedback. If I say to you, Paul, that was rubbish, that's not feedback, because in both those cases, I'm not telling you how you could improve it or do even better. So I think let's define feedback first. Feedback is something that tells you, even if you did it really well, what you could do next time to make it even better. Would you agree?
Okay, yes, but no as well. Because I think, well done. When someone says well done to me, I take that as positive feedback.
Well, no, it's not feedback. It's positive, but it's not feedback. It's a compliment.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not constructive feedback.
Ah, there's the key word. Yeah, constructive. Okay.
Okay, so we've kind of defined sort of feedback in terms of it has to be constructive. But if somebody's giving you constructive feedback, how do you feel? What's your approach to receiving constructive feedback?
Well, I have a strategy for that.
Ooh, tell me more.
Well, when you receive feedback, you should treat it like a gift. You should take it, unwrap it, understand it, decide whether you like it or not. You might want to keep it, you might want to throw it away. So every gift you get, you don't immediately open it all the time, you don't immediately give some response, and you don't immediately like it. So I think you've got to take that feedback and just consider it. So think before you respond. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, I believe you've got to think. You've also got to be open to receiving the feedback. You've got to be ready for it, and you've actually got to listen to it as well. Do you agree?
That is true. But as you said, it also depends on how the person gives you that feedback. If you're not ready for it, you could feel like you're being smacked in the face.
That's true. I think it's also important that when someone does give you feedback, you actually understand what they're saying to you, because I think some people might have a way of describing things that you don't quite understand sometimes. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And if you know me very, very well, you know that I have trouble listening.
Really? You have trouble listening?
I do.
I would never have guessed. Okay, so I think you've mentioned this already. You mentioned that when you've had feedback, you have to think about it. You have to reflect on what feedback you've been given. Okay, but then what? After you've reflected, what's the next step?
Well, decide whether it's useful or useless. Decide whether it's something you want to take on board, if it's action you want to take or not, and why, and respond.
Yeah, take action. Okay, so what other advice do you have for receiving feedback?
Don't wait for it. Ask for it. Don't wait for your annual appraisal or your 6-month review. Yeah, I can't promise if you ask for feedback that you'll like the response that you're given, but don't just sit there and wait for it. Ask. The only stupid question in life is the one you don't ask, and it doesn't cost you any money to ask any questions, so you should always be asking. But the question is, how do you ask?
Okay, yeah. So you're saying people have to be proactive when it comes to seeking out feedback.
Absolutely. They've got to take responsibility for their own development, and part of that is asking how they can improve, what they can do better.
Okay, yeah, I agree. So, how do you ask?
Haha, there's the key. Open questions, not closed questions. Don't say, did I do a good job? Because the guy who's your boss might just say no, and that's it. You've got to say things like, what exactly could I do next time to improve? You know, what do you suggest I change? What are the steps I can take? How would you do this? How should I try it next time? When would be the best time for us to sit down and discuss a new strategy?
Okay, yeah, all great questions.
Mm-hmm.
Open questioning.
Mm-hmm. So what, where, when, why, who, which, and how. Anything starting with those questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Anything else about receiving feedback that you can offer to our listeners?
Well, I can. Have you heard of the feedback burger or the feedback sandwich?
Ah, okay. So, yes, I think the burger, no, but the sandwich, yes. Yeah, it's all about positive and negative. So you wrap your negative comments between two positive comments.
Exactly. If you think of a sandwich, you've got 2 slices of bread with, I don't know, some cheese in the middle, for example. So bread, cheese, bread. Or a burger, you've got bread, burger, bread. The bread is the positive, the burger and the cheese is the negative. So I could say, for example, Paul, I think it's fantastic you've come to record BizPod today. However, your timing, you weren't very punctual. But next time, maybe I'll prompt you and send you a reminder for the appointment so you turn up on time.
Okay, I understood. I've reflected and understood, and I will take action. Thank you, Rachel. See how open and ready I was for your feedback?
Yeah, fantastic, Paul. Fantastic.
Okay, so let's talk about giving feedback. How do you give feedback, do you think?
Well, there is a phrase called "don't sugarcoat the donut." Do you know this one?
Yeah. So you're basically sort of saying that feedback has to be sort of honest and fair and real. You don't sugarcoat something by trying to be nice.
Yeah.
When you really shouldn't or don't have to be nice.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a difference between nice and being respectful and decent and having good behaviour. It doesn't mean being nasty to somebody and criticising them. But you've just got to plainly say, you're doing this, it's not up to standard, this is what you should do to improve. Can you do that?
Okay. How about sort of showing empathy, especially when you're having to give negative feedback? Should you be empathetic to the receiver's situation?
Yes, as long as that person who's giving their reasons why they've not done a good job isn't offering excuses. Yeah, I'm not going to empathise with somebody who is offering what I would call an excuse, which is just basically they're not taking responsibility. If there's a real and honest reason why they haven't managed to do what they're supposed to do in the way they're supposed to do it, I can understand that.
Okay. Do you think, though, when you're giving someone feedback, you should try and be more positive? I know you've mentioned about not sugarcoating it, but should you be positive rather than negative?
I think it depends whether you really honestly... I mean, if you're a manager or a team leader, do you envisage that person doing the job to the standard that you think they should do it? If the true and honest answer is no, then basically you've got to help them out the door. It's a business after all. It's not a charity.
Unless you're working for a charity.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. It's a difficult one. What do you think?
Well, I think there are situations where you can't sugarcoat it, as you said. But I think you should try and phrase your feedback as positively as possible. You can even give someone really bad feedback in a positive way while you're showing them the door.
So you could say, Paul, unfortunately, Paul, we're really happy that you've had a first work experience with us here. Unfortunately, you're not up to the standard that we had hoped you might have achieved. However, we're sure there's another job for you out there somewhere. Bye-bye.
So yeah, that was very, very positive. Thank you, Rachel. So I won't be here on the next BizPod then. Okay.
Anything else, Paul?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about sort of... you mentioned earlier about people seeking out feedback rather than waiting to be given feedback. So if you're giving feedback, if you are a manager, how regularly should you give feedback to your staff? Daily, weekly, monthly?
I suppose it's a delicate balance, isn't it, between not too much. But then remember that feedback hasn't always got to be positive. You know, you've got to keep standards high. So you would be expected to maybe be critical with your feedback. But it's got to be more rather than less, but not all the time, obviously.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But I think it should be regular. You can't just sort of, once a year sit everyone down and give them feedback. Mm-hmm. It's got to be, a regular sort of part of your daily activities, I think.
Mm-hmm. One other thing is people who go to annual reviews or performance appraisals, they sometimes treat them as a whinge session. Don't treat your appraisal as a whinge session where you say everything that you hate about the company. Yeah, positive people, I always say positive people get more points, yeah? Mm-hmm. But it's an opportunity for you to find out what you can do to progress in the company, to get the next promotion, to get that bonus. And if you don't ask at that point of view, well, you're not helping yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. I think we have covered most things that we want to talk about when it comes to giving and receiving feedback. Mm-hmm. Can you give me a little bit of feedback?
I think you did very well today, Paul. I'll have more of the same next month, please.
Okay, that's more of a compliment than feedback, but I'll accept it anyway.
On time next month.
Okay, I'll be on time next month. Sorry.